So, dear participants, on behalf of the expert in international trade at the Chamber of Commerce of Metropolitan Montreal, we welcome you to our webinar of the Desjardins International Meeting Series. Today's topic is about the strategic advantage of doing business in India manufacturing sectors. I would like to use this time to thank our partners, starting with Desjardins, our principal sponsors, as well our collaborators, Export Development Canada and La Presse, who made this webinar possible, Economic Development Agency of Canada for the regions of Quebec for its ongoing support of the World Trade Center Montreal activities. So my name is Anaïs Nguyen. I am an advisor for international market development. Our speakers today is His Excellency Mr. Ajay Bisaria, High Commissioner of India to Canada, Mr. Varun Sood, Vice President of Invest India, and Mr. Vijay Kalantri, Vice Chairman, World Trade Center Mumbai, and Board of Director, World Trade Centers Association. Just to be quick, if you have any question, you can ask your question in your Q&A box. As well, you will receive a short survey at the end of the webinar. Thank you so much, and His Excellency, you may have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm delighted that this webinar, which has been planned for such a long while, has actually landed today and it's going on. So good morning to all friends and colleagues in Canada. Good evening to friends in India. And let me start by thanking Ms. Anais Nguyen, advisor at the Chamber of Commerce of Montreal, for taking this initiative and taking it forward. I also want to recognize my friend in India, Mr. Vijay Kalantri, Vice Chairman of the World Trade Center Mumbai. Welcome. And I see also Mr. Varun Sood, my colleague from Invest India, Vice President, who's going to make a presentation. And so good to see everyone joining in. And this is an important conversation to have, particularly in Quebec, given the strong Quebec interests in India. What I thought I'd do is, in my remarks, is very briefly talk about the COVID pandemic situation in India, as also the economic situation, and then come up to the point of discussing some of the opportunities that we see in the India-Canada corridor, and particularly in the India-Quebec economic corridor. When you look at the public health situation in India, we are fortunate. We are seeing light at the end of the tunnel. This has been a huge exercise. The number of infections in India had been large in absolute numbers, more than 10 million. But in relative terms, in infections per million, we are one of the lowest affected countries in the world, with an infection rate of less than 0.7% of the population. Compare that to much higher rates in North America, in the US, and even in Canada. But the current fatality rate for us, fortunately, had been very low, which is about 1.5%, and which is, again, less than half the world average. So the initial lockdown in India allowed us to develop the capacities to deal with this huge crisis that came upon us. And today, India is not just the pharmacy of the world, it is also the vaccine maker of the world. If 2020 was the year of the virus, 2021 is the year of the vaccine. So India is up there right in front in the vaccine solution for the world. We feel it should be a global solution, and India has already committed about 10 million doses for our neighbors and our friendly countries. And we've rolled out the largest vaccination drive in the world. With India has 60% of the vaccine making capacity of the world, and we are hoping to use this to heal the world. In India, we have 3 indigenous vaccines, indigenously developed, and 3 joint ventures which are manufactured in India. 2 of these are already approved and are rolling out. And we have the capacity to produce up to 1 billion doses and distribute them in the world. So we are part of the vaccine conversation. Looking at the economic crisis that followed the public health crisis, the 2020 was the year of contraction for the entire world, and India was no exception. But 2021, we hope, will be a year of a V-shaped recovery. Already we had an IMF prediction that came in, a projection which we saw in the last couple of days, which is showing India in double-digit growth in 2021. We hope it is right. The projection is that India will grow by 11.5% in 2021 and then continue to grow in 2022 at more than 6%. So this is good news, not just for India, but for the world, for the global economy, for our partners, because India is determined to make a quick recovery. The Indian economy is firing up. We are reaching near pre-COVID levels in several sectors, and we retain our ambition of being a $5 trillion economy by 2025 and perhaps a $10 trillion economy by 2035. So India is looking at normalization rapidly, globally, in all sectors, in terms of trade, in terms of investments, in terms of mobility. For mobility, we have negotiated more than 25 air bubble agreements, and we have Air India that did the Vande Bharat mission, including with Canada. So we have a large number of flights which are going and people are moving. We hope to normalize this mobility as soon as possible. So India remains open for business after the pandemic. We are issuing business visas in Canada should you want to travel. The COVID cases and caseload is very low in India, and the vaccination drive is on. We are not issuing tourist visas at the moment, but we are open for business. As you know, India's economic reforms have also clipped along during the pandemic. The reforms began in 1991 and were incrementally rolled out all through the decades. But we saw the crisis of the pandemic as an opportunity to go through structural reforms all across the board. So whether it was in land, labor, capital, in education, in agriculture, we saw a great deal of reform. And the impact of that reform was very clearly seen. The FDI numbers were very heartening in 2020. Between April and September, we saw almost $40 billion come into India. This was in the height of the pandemic, and that was a 15% year-on-year growth over the previous year. So there's a great deal of investment that came into India's digital future. And if you see some of the global statistics, in 2018, China got twice the amount of investment as India, $18 billion worth versus about $9 billion. But in 2020, India got thrice the FDI compared to China. It was about $15 billion compared to $4.5 billion in China. So there is a huge kind of trust in India and trust in the Indian economy that we are seeing. The signs of growth are being verified by a large number of agencies. I've seen a report of CII and Ernst & Young in India, which says that the investments by 2025 could potentially go up to $160 billion, thanks to the signaling coming out of the FDI reforms, the reduction in corporate rates, simplification of labor laws, ease of doing business. So the reforms have created a huge impact. And add to this, to the stimulus package that India has rolled out, which is like Canada's, which is about 10% of the economy. In a couple of days, India will present a budget. We expect that to be a huge fiscal stimulus for the economy. So we are accelerating towards a very strong digital future in India, and we hope that our partners come along with us. with a large number of incentives like the production-linked incentive scheme, which is meant to incentivize production, particularly in the manufacturing sector. So I think the reforms are creating a kind of buzz in India, and the government has decided to decisively move ahead in creating conditions for both investment and for trade, and particularly in the manufacturing sector. Coming to the India-Canada corridor, I think this is a very positive story. We declared a strategic partnership in 2015 when Prime Minister Modi had come. And the headline of that economic partnership has been that Canadian investment in India, particularly portfolio investment, has gone up from $5 billion to over about $60 billion. And we have 600 Canadian companies active in India, about 1,000 engaged with India, just like there are 100 companies from India which are engaged in Canada particularly, and several of them in Quebec. We have valued this investment greatly. Our Prime Minister has twice communicated directly with investors in October and November, and we are keen to improve conditions for investment as we go along. In the overall engagement that we saw in 2020, if you put together trade, investment, and remittances and tourism spend, has already crossed $100 billion. And we feel that there is a great scope in doubling that investment. We have in Canada and in Quebec the special advantage of having a very active Indo-Canadian community of 1.6 million people who are particularly active in the business sector, and they become champions of a lot of activity that takes place in the India-Canada corridor. And we hope that we are proud of this community, and we work very closely with them in taking forward specific ideas. The national education policy of India is also a game changer, and that gives opportunities for universities to be present in India, and particularly given that a lot of human capital comes into Canada from India, I think this is something that is again going to be positive. So if you look at the last year, just some of the numbers are impressive in the Indo-Canadian corridor. We have the largest global investor in India is now a Canadian investor. Brookfield of Canada is the largest investor with an investment of $20 billion. Last year, if you look at the startup and innovation space, we have now more than 50,000 startups. We produced 11 unicorns. And the good news is that the first unicorn that emerges in 2021, which is called Digit Insurance in the fintech space, that has a Canadian connection because Fairfax has invested in this unicorn, which has a valuation of $1.9 billion. So we have a great deal happening, and the future lies in manufacturing, in innovation, in technologies, in skill development. And we feel that in India's rise, over the next few decades, Canada will become a very important partner. We also, when we look at the Quebec situation, I'm delighted that we have such a large number of companies in Quebec with so many interests in India. We know Bombardier very well, and they produce the coaches which are used by metros in several cities in India, and they are manufacturing in India. They know India very well. We have CDPQ, which is one of our most mature investors, which has been in India for more than a decade and knows the ins and outs of the Indian investment scenario. So all in all, a very positive picture, and a picture at this point of time of hope in 2021 and 2022. So I invite our friends in Quebec to look at the India opportunity very carefully. And thank you for organizing this webinar, and I wish you a very successful morning of deliberation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bizariar. So I invite Mr. Varun Sood from Invest India.
Thank you, Anai. I have just shared my screen. There's a small presentation that I wanted the participants to go through. I hope you're able to see my presentation and the screen.
Yes, we can just see it just fine. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, wonderful. So thank you so much, Shania. It's a excellent opportunity, and I want to thank Chamber of Commerce Montreal for providing this platform to further strengthen the strong relationship which His Excellency Indian High Commissioner Mr. Ajay Visaria mentioned between India and Canada. I would like to also acknowledge the presence of Mr. Vijay Kalantri, Vice Chairman WTC Mumbai, in this particular forum. Today, I'll be talking about three major themes: where India was, a couple of years ago, and how we are progressing towards the new digital economy, which His Excellency also touched upon. The second point I want to raise through my presentation would be the various opportunities, not just in manufacturing, but in services, in infrastructure, that most of the investors in Canada can collaborate and look at investing in India. And the final element of my presentation would be more towards the India-Canada relationship, which His Excellency also talked about, and how we have a dedicated team which are facilitating investments across India and Canada for that matter. As you can see, India 30 years ago, where we stood, our GDP was close to around $300 billion. We were the 12th largest economy in terms of nominal value. And our stock exchange, which is the Sensex, was at 1,000 points. Coming forward to 2021, we are the fifth largest in terms of GDP right now. We are the third largest economy in terms of the scale, and our Sensex has crossed 50,000 points, which shows the kind of trust that investors and the kind of growth the country is seeing. Currently, we are number one in terms of fintech adoption in the world. We're number one in terms of smartphone data consumption, whereas the average prices of data across the world used to be somewhere in the range of $8 to $10. India had the cheapest data and the massive consumption during that period. We're also highest in terms of internet users. Thanks to the whole launch of a new player a couple of years ago, the data consumption has tremendously grown, and that has given rise to a lot of technology companies and the startups, which His Excellency mentioned earlier. India used to be, number 12th on the startup rank. Right now, we're number three with more than 51,000 plus startups that we currently look across various domains. And this is just the start of the growth story. As you can see, India also presents a $5 trillion opportunity for investors to come and invest across sectors by 2025. Some of the major sectors that we're talking about here are $640 billion opportunity in construction. I'll be touching upon some of the sectors later in my presentation, but just a few key parts. His Excellency mentioned about India being the pharmacy of the world and supplying the vaccines to the world as well. Now the idea, I mean, the opportunity that is there is close to around 65 billion in the pharmaceutical market, and it's growing rapidly. India is focusing on moving, from a pharmacy of the world to the laboratory of the world. So there's a lot of focus which is being put in manufacturing and building up global value chains in the country, looking at economies of scale, and investing in the human capital by skilling and reskilling programs. So that is where the government is looking at investment opportunities and see a massive potential. We also come across as a major player across multiple segments. I mean, the Make in India program that was launched by the Honorable Prime Minister in 2015 has been given a significant push to 25 key sectors. As you can see, India is the second largest smartphone market in the world with more than 150 million shipments going from our country to other places, and it's growing at a 11% CAGR. And this is just a start. We've got more than 1.2 billion mobile subscribers, but the most unique part out of that is there are 350 plus million smartphone users, and the rest of the phone users are on the primary phones. So there's a huge opportunity from primary phone users to move to a digital or a smartphone user. And a lot of these SIM cards in the 650 million that we're talking about are multiple users. So there's tremendous growth opportunities which still exist within the existing numbers that I'm talking about. We're the fourth largest oil refinery, which has seen more than potential investment opportunities worth $118 billion by 2024. The other key segment that are growing is the e-commerce market. At the end of the year, close to around November, when India celebrates the festival of Diwali, we have two main e-commerce operators, Amazon and Flipkart. They collectively saw sales of more than $15 billion in a 4-day period. That is something which is unimaginable which was unimaginable couple of years ago. But because of the pandemic, the spending habits of the users have shifted. Now, a lot of users want to look at convenience, want to look at safety, and that's where e-commerce market comes into play. And India has a very robust system of the local mom and pop store as well, and which is getting further, push through the policies that the government is devising for this particular sector. COVID definitely had certain impact, but it gave us a lot of opportunities as well. Before COVID, India, there was not even a single PPE manufacturer. Now, after COVID, we're the second largest PPE manufacturer in the world, and that we have only achieved in 60-day period. The other innovation from the Indian entrepreneurs was devising this particular ventilator kit, which could run without electricity and cost less than $250 altogether. So you can imagine the kind of innovation that this pandemic has led to, and what is the outcome of this particular thing. We're already the sales of our food deliveries, which had slumped because of the pandemic, are reached at 85% level. There's huge donations that have happened during the COVID, like N95 masks. More than 2.2 crore masks were distributed across states and different governments. India, was the key in supplying hydroxychloroquine to the world. More than 160 countries have received supply of HCQ during the pandemic, which was one of the most effective, vaccine, medicine against COVID issue as well. What we are seeing after COVID is a growth in the manufacturing sector. And there are multiple parameters, including ease of doing business, where we've jumped more than 79 ranks since 2014. Uh, the government is focusing a huge investment in the infrastructure development. There are multiple schemes such as the Sagarmala, the Bharatmala, to have a multimodal infrastructure development across the country to cut down the cost of logistics and ensure this timely delivery of goods from one location to another. Another another key parameter that we've seen is usage of technology in creating land banks. Now we're looking at an online system of having industrial plots mapped across the country. And I'll be talking about all these. And the most key important initiative which has been launched, and which has gained momentum post-COVID is the production linked incentive scheme. And I believe His Excellency also mentioned about the FDI growth. FDI between 2015 and 2020 have grown more than 100%. And you can see a breakup of different sectors where this FDI has gone into. As I mentioned earlier, in 2014, India ranked around 142 in World Bank's ease of doing business. And within a 5-year period, we've seen remarkable jump of 79 places. And currently we stand at 63. And our targets are set high. We want to enter top 50 and top 10 in the next few years to come. We've also spent a lot of, or the government has been focusing a lot on the innovation, inculcating the innovation and the R&D focus on the country. So we've jumped around 29 places from a rank of 52 to rank 29 in the Global Innovation Index. And what has helped is, the cost of doing business in India has actually come down. So if you look at it, we have one of the lowest corporate tax rates in Southeast Asia. Earlier, it used to be 30%. Now it's gone down to 17% with the reforms and the incentives that the government has launched. We also have a very competitive, utilities cost. For example, if you talk about electricity, which is made available at 0.07 cents per kilowatt hour, which is one of the lowest in the entire region. So setting up your business, has been done. Has been made easy, and that also includes, a lot of use of technology by building up single forms to get multiple clearances done. India could be complicated for somebody who's coming for the first time, but what this system does is that you go online in one single system. You can look across multiple ministries, multiple states, and fill up those forms and get approvals online as well. And the team is in the process of devising this integrated single window system, and a lot of other state governments and the ministries already have some of these internal systems put into place. And the other key element that you talk about is, the business friendly nature or the risk of doing business in the country, which is again significant. As you look, more than 41 labor laws have been reformed. If we talk about, the reforms, more than 750 different acts have been repealed. So the government is reviewing and benchmarking itself against the best in the world. We're trying to see what other countries are doing. How can we make it easier? How can we make it simpler for investors to come in and not feel, not feel overwhelmed by the compliance structure? So the key element that comes over here is investments, and one of the most, the biggest focus for the government is transforming the logistics. That is the key to the manufacturing growth. As I said earlier, the focus is on developing an integrated multimodal transport mechanisms. Earlier in India, the road used to be constructed at 11 kilometers per day. Now we are looking at an average of 28 kilometers per day. And in the last 3 months, we've clocked an average of 42 to 44 kilometers per day. So you can imagine the focus government is doing in building up the connectivity so that, no region gets left unconnected, and there's tremendous growth opportunities that can come to them. The other key aspects are the Bharatmala, the Sagarmala project, which is to harness the 7,900 kilometer strong coastline of the country. More than $100 billion worth of planned port modernization projects have already been included. Dedicated freight corridors have been set up across the country to move goods faster from one location to another. What is this result in? What will this result in? The logistics cost is scheduled to drop down by 5 to 6%, which can give a significant ROI to companies who are looking to invest. It can increase the average speed of road networks by 20 to 25%. And the investments in the port and the Bharat and the Sagarmala project is looking to increase the port cargo handling capacity by 100%. So these are some of the significant changes which the government has been focusing on. We are well positioned for future through our infrastructure development. If you look at on the right hand side, we are one of the highest operational efficient ports in the world, whereas in China it's 2.0. India is currently at 2.5, and as I said earlier, with the planned investments kicking in, this number is going to go down. So we are currently one of the most competitive in the region. Even in terms of the railroad network, if you see, India currently scores around 56.6%, which talks about the connectivity of that particular region, which is way higher than some of our competitors as well. And what has helped in this particular process is, focus on removal of interstate checkposts that has cut the transit time on a significant basis by 20%. What also is key is implementations of good and services tax, which has made India one nation and a single tax regime across multiple states. Earlier, there were challenges in terms of compliance across multiple states, multiple regulations. But with emergence of GST and implementation of GST, all those taxes have been 40 different indirect taxes have been converged into one common goods and service tax. That makes it easier for compliance and business to flourish. I talked about this briefly, the National Land Bank. And as you can see, the focus is on developing or using technology in capturing the land bank for industries to come and set up operation. So the whole idea behind setting up this National Land Bank is that we have more than 3,982 industrial parks across the country with more than 5 lakh hectares available, land available there. How do you make it easily available for investor to see what land, what portion, what state works best for them? So what's the IIS is going to do is that sitting at the comfort of your home, you can log in, you can register, log in into portal and see the availability by sectors, by size, by price, by other companies which are available in that particular location. And it's going to be a geo-tagged or GIS based portal where you can actually see the location on the Google map and play along with the multiple data points that are there. It is already implemented in 6 states, and the whole project is looking to implement it across the country. His Excellency also touched upon the production linked incentive scheme. This is one of the most critical aspects of this government. The idea is that during pandemic, a lot of companies have suffered because of no diversification in their supply chains or over dependence on countries to supply their material. That's where now the companies are looking to diversify their manufacturing capabilities, and that's where India comes and shows its strength. We've already reached. We've already converted outlay of close to around $20 billion worth of incentives that the government is offering across 10 key sectors, which includes namely automobiles, your cell battery, pharmaceutical, food products, steel, white good, electronics. And the idea behind this particular scheme is that we not only want to make Indian manufacturers globally competitive, but we want to give companies an alternative just in case if something goes wrong. There's a strong manufacturing capability which is available in India, which could be leveraged. And the other area that the government is looking is synergies of economies of scale. Large clusters are being developed. I mean, the pharma clusters where API and bulk drugs will be produced. Now, the government is looking at setting up those 4 to 5 large pharma clusters where they can achieve economies of scale, and the companies can come invest and look at export potential not just in the Asian market but also in the rest of the world. Some of the key sectors that have been favorable between India and Canada are chemicals, food products, automobiles, and energy. If you talk about the food, food processing sector, India and Canada have always been the leaders in terms of storage, packaging, dairy, animal husbandry. So what Indian government is looking at doing is setting up of 37 mega food parks where multiple commodities and services would be available to different consumers or investors who are looking to enter Indian market. In 2018, the food processing sector was close to around $337 billion, which is poised to grow at around 535 billion by 2025-26. So this shows a huge opportunity that just exists in one sector. Similarly, every sector, there are certain new schemes and opportunities which have been devised, which can give investors significant returns across, if they compare their returns across multiple economies. We are one of the, we're the sixth largest food and grocery market in the world. And as I said, because of the launch of the PLI scheme and setting up of these parks, we're expected to grow at a very rapid pace. Energy is something, renewable energy is something which the government is also focusing on. We have close to around 373 gigawatt installed power capacity by 20. The target is to produce 450 gigawatt of renewable energy by 2020 or 2030, and 100% FDI is allowed. There is no permission. Besides the regular setup and the transactions, no special approval is required for any investor to come and invest in this particular sector. And as you can see, between this renewable energy sector has seen close to around $9.5 billion worth of investments flowing in the non-conventional energy sector as well. And the potential is immense. We're looking at an opportunity of close to around 1,000 gigawatt as well. A lot of key or marquee names are already present in India. So what you see in this map on the left-hand side are some of the pan-India manufacturing zones. On the north, we have places like Amritsar, Jalandhar, Ludhiana. And if we go at the bottom, we can see new emerging outlets like Tirupati, Chennai, and Coimbatore, which have been attracting a lot of investments across multiple sectors. And on the right hand side, we can see different companies across the globe who have set up their operations on manufacturing in locations in certain regions. What we've seen has worked very successful for some of the investors are setting up of country specific cluster zones. So for example, if you see on the right hand side in NCR Delhi, there's a huge Korean Japanese investments that have come in. So a lot of these companies have come in the similar cluster. So that not only helps in development or easier for expats to settle in, but also gives a huge push for companies in terms of reducing their logistics costs, reducing their other compliances by having multiple locations across countries. So this is something our team is there to support our investors as well. The other area that the government is looking to focus is by different incentives. So we have host of incentives from the central and the state government as well. For example, the 4-year window of lower corporate tax, which I talked about earlier, we were at a higher tax slab. Now we're close to around 17.16% for new manufacturing units that will come up in India till March 2023. Uh, we also have special economic zones which are deemed foreign territories and are exempt from a lot of local taxes as well. Another interesting scheme which the government has launched are custom bonded warehouses where you have deferred duty structure on capital goods and raw materials. So you can import your machinery, your plant, your fixed assets, and take deferred and pay a deferred duty on those particular goods as well. The other key incentives that are coming into place from state governments also includes, industries and commerce department policies, which have a validity period of 5 years. There's a lot of different incentives across capital expenditures and, mechanisms to reduce operating expenditures. So once we understand what sector a particular investor is interested in, what our team does at Invest India, they go across multiple state governments looking at certain criteria which the investors have identified. And then they ask the state governments to come and pitch to those investors what is the best they can offer. So what we want is, a full democratic mechanism where the investors have pre-identified criterias, and then the state governments come to them saying that this is what they are ready to offer to them as well. And that's where Invest India, your friend in this journey, comes into play. We are the National Investment Promotion and Facilitation Agency arm of the Government of India. And we are placed in a very unique structure where a government holds a minority stake in us, and we are very close to the industry as well. We have the leading industrial chamber, which is FICCI, CI, and NASCOM on our board as well. So what it does is bring us in a unique position where we can take investors' voice to the government and found a suitable outcome, which is a win-win for both the parties. We work right from educating the investor in what are the different opportunities available across spectrum in India, and how they should structure their business and provide them those advisory and strategic consulting services. And then once they're looking to set up operation, we help them, facilitate their transactions on the ground and provide aftercare services. And it's all pro bono. We don't charge anything for our services as well. What this has been recognized across the globe. As you can see, UNCTAD, which is something similar to our Oscar for investment promotion agencies, have awarded Invest India the best IPA consecutively for 2016, 2018, and 2020. We've been the best IPA in terms of project facilitation across AIMS, which is annual investor meets for all the IPAs across the world. And we've won this award consecutively for 5 years for different projects. So that shows the kind of recognition that the team has received on the facilitation that they've done. His Excellency mentioned about India, Canada as well. We have a dedicated team which is there for the investors from Canada to come and invest in the country. The team is currently looking at 30 plus Canadian investors. And as you can see, the major sectors spread across energy, food, infrastructure, and services and institutional investments. We've received more than 180 plus business interests from Canada in multiple parts of the country, whereas Gujarat, Punjab, Maharashtra are some of the key states which the Canadian investors are looking to understand the market and invest in the country. We've already touched upon the trade between India and China. More than 400 countries have been present, but as you can see, it is growing year on year, and there's huge potential. And with the new investments coming in, which His Excellency also mentioned, we see this significant jump between the trading opportunities between the countries. So as you can see, Brookfield, which has invested significantly in the telecom tower, and as I mentioned earlier, we have 1.2 billion subscribers, but the smartphone market is still underpenetrated. So there's a huge opportunities that lies for investors to come not only invest in the companies but to explore some of these startups which are having disruptive technologies in different fields as well. This is the team at Invest India, which is there to handhold, support, and facilitate investments on ground. Our email IDs and our contact details are available online, and we'll be requesting the organizers to share this presentation with the attendees so they can later reach out to the team in case they have any queries or any concerns they would like to address. Uh, Thank you so much for this opportunity. It was a wonderful moment to be present. And Anais, back to you now.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sood. So I would like to invite Mr. Vijay Kalantri from the World Trade Center, Mumbai.
Thank you. His Excellency, Mr. Ajay Bisaria, Indian High Commissioner to Canada. Mr. Bisaria has a very big experience to his credit. He has been very pro-trade, supporting trade and industry, and he has, wherever assignment he has taken, he has seen that the trade between India and that country grows. I hope the Canada has a right person there, and they can take advantage of Mr. Bisaria, who is very dynamic and very proactive, and takes up the things himself personally and supports. So Mr. Bisaria, we wish you all the best, because you have a tough task ahead, because we look forward to double the trade with India and Canada, which is today 2.9 import and 1.9 export. So this could be doubled in next 3 years during your tenure, and much more investment we look for from Canada to India. Many of I think what I wanted to speak has been spoken by His Excellency as well as by Mr. Sood, Vice President Invest India, made a very elaborate presentation. He has left nothing much for me to speak, but I will speak few thoughts of mine that we do have very good relation with Canada and our counterparts in Canada, Chambers of Commerce, as well as World Trade Centers across the Canada. And we do business opportunities, exchange of trade delegation from time to time, and create a business opportunity between India and Canada. And most of the the governors as well as the premiers and ministers who do visit India, we do host them and organize regularly interaction for creating opportunity, B2B meetings, business meetings. We do take trade delegations. We have taken 2-3 times trade delegations in the last 4-5 years to Canada and met the various industries there, the officials, as well as signed an MOU with some of the chambers of commerce as well as the World Trade Centers for promoting trade and business opportunities. I feel some of the areas where they could look at is, of course, the freight corridor, Delhi-Mumbai industrial corridors, because across the corridor, government has identified various sectors such as automobile, electronics, textiles, agro-food, which could be developed across these DMIC sectors and other sectors. And government has also identified the land for them and which areas where we could develop these sectors. Besides this, of course, the production linked incentive scheme, which is very popular for the 10 sectors which government has done, which Mr. Sood had elaborated and said. But I feel that Canada could look India very seriously in the face of aerospace, food and beverages, automobiles, clean technology, science, life sciences, information and communication technology, oil and gas. Because oil and gas is one sector where we both can work together for better, because India requires nearly more 100 deficit by 100 million ton of 100 million cubic meter of oil and gas, and we need partners like Canada who could work with us in this area of working, looking at various investment into these sectors. As you rightly said that the Brookfield has been investing, and we have seen that most of the hospitality sector, Brookfield has been looking after, and some of the good groups they have been able to take care of, like Leela Group and in some other hotel groups also they are participating. So I feel that some of the identified focus areas could be worked out and which we could focus along with Montreal Chamber of Commerce, Madam Anna. We could see that these are some of the sectors where both the Canadian and Indian counterpart could work together and say that these are some sectors we do identify and we work on it and we see that we get some good results out of it. Whether Indian investment in Canada or Canada investment in India, either way, or technology transfer. As we talk about 5 trillion economy by 2025. So we need to have your technology. We need to work together for better technology and better future tomorrow. And the areas which we are importing a lot of grain from Canada. We are importing various other items which both the countries, one more area where we can work together is knowing each other well, because we have to know Canada better and Canada has to know us better. And how this can be done by disseminating information from time to time between us, exchange of information, exchange of trade delegations, and creating opportunities. So I hope with these few words, I will leave it here. And thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to speak to you, because my task was made much easier by His Excellency as well as by Mr. Sood. So I thought that I will just come out with some of my comments which could be taken forward and work together. So thank you, Madam Anna, and thank you for participating jointly with World Trade Center Mumbai and Montreal Chamber and other EDC. So with all the best, and we look forward to working with you closely. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kalantri. So from now, we arrive to the question period. So we have one question. It's from Faisal Shaikh. He asking, they have a partner and they would like to know how to partner for a joint venture with packaging company from Canada. So do you have any recommendation for a company from Canada who want to joint venture with a packaging company?
Sure, you want me to take this, and I can request Mr. Vijay Kalantri also to give his inputs. So generally what happens when the company is looking for a partner, we, as I mentioned earlier, we have, the largest associations in the country, which is FICCI and CI on our board. So we run it across their teams, that these are the opportunities which have come from Canada, and these are the sort of partners, and these are the multiple criteria they're looking at. So we'll be happy to make those introductions, especially in the packaging industry within FICCI, to the relevant people, and they can have a dialogue or a discussion forward. And if Mr. Vijay Kalansi has something to add.
See, in World Trade Center Mumbai, as well as there are chambers of commerce which are affiliated to World Trade Center Mumbai, like All India Association of Industries and others. We have various packaging companies as our members, and they can collaborate with them. Like if you go for higher class of packaging, the Flex Industries, the Polyplex Industries, and there are various such companies which are very high tech into packaging, and Canadian company can definitely tie up with them. SL Packaging, and they are into exports as well as they are into local manufacturing. And they do have setups outside India also. So these are the companies where we can put them together and they can work together with them. And our contact and details are with you. You can pass on to them.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sood and Mr. Kalantri. So we don't have any more questions, and we arrive at the end of the question period. So I would like to thank you again for your excellent presentation. It was a pleasure having you here today. So I would like to thank the participants as well for being here. As a quick reminder, I will send you a follow-up email tomorrow with the slide from Invest India and all the contact from the High Commission of India from Canada, sorry. Again, the video is recording, so you can find the video on the webpage of the event. I would like to thank again our partners, starting with Desjardins, our principal sponsors, as well our collaborators, Export Development Canada and La Presse, and Economic Development Agency of Canada for the region of Quebec. So on the behalf of the Chamber of Commerce of Metropolitan Montreal, I wish all of you a good day and hope to see you at our next event. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here and have a good day.
Thank you. All the best.